conference, and the session continues to look at future trends of a sustainable digital transformation of the agricultural value chain. Before I hand over to the moderator of the session, I would like to remind all of you that you can pose questions directly to our session's experts, and you can do that by using the chat window on the right side of your screen. And if you enter questions, please also add the name of the question or the expert you would like to address the question to. So feel free to pose questions and be part of the discussion, and we will try to answer most of the questions, or as many as possible, at the end of our debate. With that being said, I'm pleased to introduce the moderator of this session. It's Niels Gütke. Niels is head of division of the Danish Agency of Science and Higher Education, and he is responsible for leading the implementation of EU research and innovation policy and programming across the bioeconomy in Denmark. Niels, it's really great to have you with us, and I'm sending hello from Berlin to Copenhagen, and the digital floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this very, very interesting conference. I participated yesterday and also this morning, and I think that you have touched a lot of these very, very interesting elements which are now, yes, impacting the digital process in the agri-food system. So up till now, a very, very good conference. And here this morning, we will continue to look into the future trends for the sustainable digital transformation in the agri-food value chain. And the first speaker today is Dr. Karel Schavat, who has been in this area for many, many years. He has been working with ICT, information and communication technologies, precision farming for many years, and he has always also been involved in many European research projects. He has been chairing the IFITA organization, the European Federation for Information Technology in Agriculture. So, Dr. Karel Schavat, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for opportunity to be here and to make my presentation. It is very nice. I hope I'm trying to share my screen. Do you see my screen already?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so as was mentioned, I am working a long time about this topic, ICT for agriculture, and this could be that I will start a little, we will look on the future, but I will start a little in the past, because many things is not new, and if we would like to see the future, we will need also to learn a little from the past. So at the beginning, some years ago, we worked on the project which was called Agri Exchange. It was focused on sharing and standardization information in agriculture. And already this 10 years ago, we recognized that there will be a number of different challenges, and these challenges will have influence on agriculture. In some cases, the challenges will go in opposite direction, and it will be necessary to find the good way how to manage and organize information and knowledge management system. Now we have a Green Deal, and the Green Deal is generating very high challenges on farming. Yes, we have to reduce the risk of hazard pesticide, we have to reduce fertilizer, we need to increase biodiversity, we need to be to focus on the carbon, we need to focus on the energy. So there is a huge number of requirements, and it is not only in European scale, but something very similar, or could be that it is beginning is on the world scale. It is Sustainable Development Goals of United Nations, and here we can see also additional things like food and nutrient security, which is till now very important in many developing countries. So we have number of challenges, and if we will simplify this, we can say that future agriculture production needs to, in the global scale, to produce more with higher quality and using less land and other inputs. So it is important to say that it will be not possible without some good knowledge management. And here I would like to use this. It is called the wisdom pyramid, and we need to understand that we have at the beginning data. With the data are mainly dealing we as people from ICT, but the data is nothing. We need information, so there is the space for people like expert in Earth observation and other. Then we need to generate knowledge, and it is not enough to make some could be analysis of satellite image, but we need to find some way how to transfer this into agriculture tasks. So we need to include it agriculture experts, agronomists, and other. And on the end, we need to transfer this to the farmers. So we need to build the wisdom to understand the principles, to understand why we have to do this. Yeah, if we are looking on the information in agriculture sector, we have three levels: macro, which are global information, till now not very often used by farmers; farm level and field level, what is usually related to precision farming and this task. And in reality, to be able to build effective knowledge management, we need to be able to connect it information and knowledge across all this level, and to be able to combine this to lead to some good decision making. This is a very old picture coming from one colleague from Denmark, and I think that this picture is coming from year something 2006, 2008, and it demonstrated the position of farmer in the ICT. Yes, a huge number of systems with different standards, with different protocols, and farmer is more and more moving to be some data manager or ICT application manager than agriculture producer. We have a huge number of system. Europe invests a huge number of money in Horizon and other projects into development of the different system. I am showing here some number of solutions coming from different projects. But if we would like in the end to be able to use farming information effectively, we need to find some way of interoperability and connection of all this system. It is now discussed, for example, with Destination Earth and this activity, how to be able to connect the different cloud, different systems. Other topic, what is now important, that we jumped into the so-called period of big data. Yes. But there are also other topics. We have big data, but we have open data, and we are also discussing shared data. There is necessary to mention that open data and shared data is something different. Yes, all open data could be shared, but not all shared data are open. It means that the data are shared through some value chain, not with anybody. So there is important to understand this difference. And if we are defining big data, it is not only amount of the data, the volume of the data, but it is varied. It is the data are very heterogeneous, and you need to combine this data. There are data from satellite, IoT, LPIS, other data, and this is also something what is making the data big. Other topic is velocity, that we are receiving the stream of the data all time. The monitoring data from satellite, from IoT technology are coming all time, and of course it is the volume. But as I already mentioned, yes, open and big data are not holy grail, and we need to look on this, how to transfer this into some user instrument which will be able to help to the farmers. I participate on many discussions in last weeks, and very often there is one argument. Why farmers are not using in ICT technology in such form as we would like to see. And very often is answered, they are old. But it is not true. I start to work about ICT for agriculture in '94, and do you know what was in this time the most often answer why farmers are not interested about new technology? They are old. But if you will take the difference from '94 till 2020, it is one generation, so probably there is some mistake, and this mistake is probably on our side of us, the developers, that we are not able in some way to understand to the farmers and supply farmers with the right solution. If we are looking on rural communities, they are not interested about the data. They are interested about information. And what we need is really to need all value chain which will be able to support all these rural communities with knowledge, with wisdom, yes, to help to the farmers to use the data. I know some few farmers in Czech who are able really to do with the data, who are processing of satellite images, who are able to analyze sensors data, but most of the farmers need to have some help. And really, this decision is the decision through value chain. And what is also very important is the question of return of investment. Yes, because in many cases, what I see is much more wish of the producer of different application, producer of the different technology. And very often it's not look what farmers are willing or able to pay for some type of application. And we need to look really if we are designing some methods, not only on the level of ICT, but could be also on the level of agronomic methods, on the return of investment of the farm, we can prepare excellent model. But if the cost of this model will be higher than profit of the farmers, probably no farmers will use this. So this is one thing what we have to look on. Or if in the case some application of some technology is in the common interest, to look how this could be partly covered from the public sector or other. And I am again back with the image from the beginning, but I extended this image to current situation. We have a number of clouds. I show some clouds from the project, but we have industrial clouds coming from satellite producer, from chemical producer, Earth observation. We have in Europe DIAS, and the situation is not better. Yes, we have clouds from machinery. Before, farmers work with some application. Now there is a number of cloud, and how it will be so, how it can help, because this situation is not good for farmer. So there are in some way two ways. Yes, one is, and it is very often to dream with many produce many organizations, is that there will be one organization who will take all cloud together and will manage all this information from any cloud. I am not very enthusiastic about the idea, and I think that what we will need for the future is the system of local brokers who will be able to work with the farmers through this added value chain, and who will be able to help to the farmer integrate this information into one system or one application or set of application connected, and give this to the farmer from one place. I work now on EU4Agri project, and we analyze also the Green Deal, and we prepare now for the Commission also some set of recommendations from this project, and some from this recommendation is here. We need improve the fair data principles. It is with the sharing of the data. Yes, we need extended this new European strategy for data, and in some way, if some type of application will be in public interest, we need to find some way how this will be, for example, covered from common agriculture policy. So there is important to thinking about public-private partnership, but it is not necessary that all costs will be covered by public sector. Yes, there is interest also of food industry about the data, about increasing the quality. There could be interest of financial institution like insurance, and it is necessary to look how we will be able to combine resources together to be possible to make more effective decision on the level of the farm, because if the farmers will have the role not only food producer but also other roles, it is necessary to look how we will be able to combine this. And we prepare some 10 recommendations, which will be, I hope, before Christmas, available after approval of the Commission in a white paper. Here you can see these things. What is important, and this is also related to this event, organize regular workshop conferences where will be exchange information, prepare and discuss new strategic research agenda. This is also some suggestion coming from EU4Agri. Support cooperation of players, make more open data, support cross-discipline research, because if I mentioned this, if we need to generate this wisdom, we need cooperation of ICT people, as observation people, agriculture, economy. So it is necessary to support some cross-domain research. Of course, new technological development like artificial intelligence. What I think is important to have new things, new ideas to support not only very large project, but also support some startups project or a new project, because usually new ideas which are something changing are coming from small project. We need to make more standardization. Yes, I showed that we have number of platforms, and if we would like to lead to this brokerage or other system, we need to have standards. We need to have some coordination action which will connect the different projects, different initiatives, and support this. And of course, we need to have the changes in agriculture policy. So this is shortly from my presentation, and I am ready to answer question.
Thank you very much, Karel, for this very, very interesting presentation, and also with this historical background. I like the figure you showed to us about the poor farmer and all these complicated issues that farmers have to deal with. And even today, as you said, the system is maybe even more complex. So a short question to you before that I go to the next speaker, Claudia Mittermeier. Karel, how do you see farmers in this very, very complex world that we are living in today, where they have to deal with big tech companies, the food industry. Do we still have a role for them? Will they still be able to make a profitable farming?
I think, and what we are trying to do, if we are developing some application, in some way left some final decision on the farmers, yes, because if we would like to have here farmers, yes, not to have only anybody who will could be transfer money and manage what are doing other. We need to make some final decision on the farmers, yes, because they are responsible for his piece of the land, yes, and of course we can help him, we can give him could be some subsidies for something, but I think that farmers is important, and now are discussed, yes, industrial farming, or could be some small farming, biofarming. So we have different form of the farming, and already in this agri exchange we make some suggestions that in 2030 we will have two types of the farm: industrial farms, and we will have some could be bio-oriented farm, but also this bio-oriented farm will need to use high-level technology. Yes, but probably they will go these two ways, and I am sure that the farmers will be important, and there is space for the farmers. And what we need to farmers which will be early adopters, yes, and which will be able to show to others, also benefit from the technologies. So we are trying to work with such people in the Czech Republic, and I think that it is important, because for farmer it's much easier if he saw my neighbor, he is doing this in such form and he has benefit from this. If I will come as IT person and try to tell him, you has to do this, he will be not interested.
Yes, I think you have to unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Carvel, for this interesting presentation. I will come back to you. So now I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is Claudia Mittermeier. Claudia is CEO for a innovation lab in Austria. She is running a farm. She has been working with innovation for many years. She is also a drone pilot, so she have many interesting things related to agri-tech and farming. So, Claudia, I would like to hand over the word to you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Hello and good morning from Vienna. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about the new innovative business models of agriculture today from a trader perspective, because we have a trading company in the background in our lab. Before we step into the topic, I would just shortly introduce myself very briefly. So I'm Claudia Mittermeier, and I have an agricultural background. I run a small little organic farm, arable farm in Austria, in Upper Austria, and I'm the leader of the Agro-Innovation Lab. And the Agro-Innovation Lab is an innovation platform and a startup accelerator from RWA, which is a trading company, Raiffeisen Ware Austria, and we are closely connected with BayWa in Germany. And we are based in Vienna. We are working on innovative topics like drone technologies, IoT, robotics, and many more. And we make those technologies available and attractive on the market in Central and Eastern Europe for the farmers. And we run, therefore, all different kind of innovation challenges. For instance, accelerator programs where we closely work together with a lot of startups or other external companies to seek the best ideas. or we also use entrepreneurial structures to develop our in-house solutions. So what is our mission? Obviously, our focus is on agriculture, and more than that, on the future of agriculture. We are scouting for business models of tomorrow, testing them and adopting the most promising solutions together with the business units of RWA, and preparing a market launch in the core markets of Lagerhaus and RWA. Coming now to the topic of the innovative business models. To structure our discussion a little bit, let's look at the value chain in 3 different segments. First, the suppliers, so all the industries that are providing the input materials like seeds, fertilizers, tooling, and some more. The second, farming as a core segment of the agricultural production. And the third is the retail sector, connecting to the consumers. So retail we define a little bit wider in this case, so B2C and B2B as well. So for instance, also out-of-home consumption is included. And in many, but not in all cases, of course, there's also a processing and product enhancement step in between when we think about the meat industry, for instance. Let us now have a look on how business has been done in the past and still represents actually the majority today. What we see in the supplier step of our value chain, it is mainly in-store sales, or additionally to that, also sales via email or phone. In farming, we see our classical purchase model, so that the farmer goes into the store to their suppliers and buy their input materials there in the store. And on the other hand, he also agrees on delivery contracts with his retailers or the product enhancement partners. And in the end, for the retailers, we mainly also see in-store sales. So that is the traditional point of view. When we now have a look on the innovative business models coming up, suppliers are using more often digital possibilities like trading platforms or e-commerce platforms. And additionally to that, there's also a bigger use or the use case of using data to giving a better advice to the farmers. For instance, data from farm management information systems or also weather data, and of course also their clients' data they have. Farmers are also becoming more curious about the new business models. For instance, they use pay-per-use renting models when they have a certain workload peak, where it doesn't make any sense to buy a new tractor, for instance. They rent it out for a short time of the year, for short periods. They also use more often services from external partners. So that can be as well when they don't want to invest or it doesn't make any sense to invest in a new sprayer, that they buy a service from an external partner to be more efficient. Also, direct sales are becoming, especially now during the COVID pandemic, more interesting for the farms. Another very interesting topic is the topic about environmental performance sales, where the farmers contribute and benefit from, for instance, carbon reduction goals. And the last point I want to mention is that we see also a focus on niche segments, which is becoming more and more popular in Europe, especially on small size farms. And when we talk about the innovative business models for retailers, probably most of us will think about the classical e-commerce platforms, which are becoming more and more popular. And especially now during the COVID times, it's becoming more popular for the consumers. And another interesting point is about urban farming possibilities for retailers, where you can see that retailers are using building up their own production for instance, aquaponic or hydroponic solutions close by the retail store or on top of the retail store to have products, for instance, salads or herbs, just in time without any logistics. And additionally, I want to mention the circular economy, so where retailers develop their own solutions with the aim to reduce the amount of waste, for instance, through eco-design or the reusage of packaging and so on. And now I would like to highlight 3 examples of innovative business models used in Austria within our company. Let's have first a look on our trading platform, FarmHedge. FarmHedge is a product of a startup in Ireland. We work together with them in our accelerator program, and they make the purchase process for farmers easier and quicker. It is a digital agri-trading platform used by a classical mobile app. And on the one hand, the farmers can easily purchase their input materials over the app. So they buy the input materials through the app. And after their harvest, they also have the possibility to resell their products, their agricultural commodities, via the platform. So it's a platform which goes in 2 directions. The system gives the possibility to make really customized offers, which are seasonal and regional. So when the farmer registers first in the app, he puts in some data of his farm. So for instance, if he works organic or conventional, and then he will get customized products for his farm. And that is also the main difference between a classical e-commerce platform, where you need to look through all the different products which are available on the platform. And with FarmHedge, you have the possibility to just select your products which you use for your farm. Currently, we have more than 3,100 registered clients in Austria, and we have a revenue of more than 3 million euros via the app. So FarmHedge is at the moment one of the most common agricultural platforms we are using, and it's used by RWA and our warehouses in Austria. The second example I want to show you is our rental model, which we are using for technical equipment. RentFlex, power by the hour, using the most modern machinery. So we developed RentFlex back in 2016. And since then, we see an upcoming interest from the market, from the farmers, to rent out the most modern machines from RWA. The renting model, RentFlex, makes curious about the newest machineries, also tillage machinery we have available. And especially when the farmer wants to cover their workload peaks, it becomes more attractive and more interesting for the farmers. Our rental park increased over the last years, and at the moment in this year, we had 70 new machines to rent. And after the renting process of 1 year, we resell the products, of course, with a special discount. And we see also there that the farmers ask for these machines more and more. For 2020, we have a forecast of around 30,000 hours sold for this year. And what you can see on the Austrian map here on the right side is that we offer the machines in 9 different RentFlex renting stations. So RentFlex is one example of a successful business model, which is becoming more and more interesting for farmers also in future. And now let us take up the last example, which is about environmental performance sales. Of course, also a very interesting topic for the future. So last summer in July, we launched our newest program about carbon sequestration. And this program is called Future Earth, and it's about benefiting from sustainable measures to increase the soil humus content. And the participants of the program, they can benefit in many ways. So Future Earth, as a first aspect, has a high impact on the climate goals. And the farmers have the possibility to have an additional income from the carbon certificates. And of course, the most important thing is also that they benefit from a better soil fertility, the water storage capacity, or also the nutrient availability. And also, of course, the soil is getting more resilient against extreme weather conditions, for instance. We do the soil sampling with our special vehicles, and we also record the GPS data, so the GPS points to have a better comparability between the two samples as well. Increasing the humus content, of course, it's a long-term program and a long-term process, and we want to support all the participants, the farmers, to have an impact on the climate protection. I would now like to summarize and recap the conclusions. Currently, the traditional business models, of course, are still predominant, especially, of course, the in-store sales. Although over the last years, we could already see that there is a high growth and a future potential for these innovative and disruptive approaches, especially driven by the market needs and the new technologies coming up and digital technologies. RWA is actively driving this process across the whole value chain. And I would like to repeat again the 3 examples I mentioned. First of all, FarmHedge, our trading platform, Renflex, the renting model, so pay-per-use, and the last one, Future Earth, environmental performance sales, where the farmers can benefit from their climate approaches. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Claudia, for this very interesting presentation. I think it's always interesting to see how these new business models can look like in practice. And here you gave us 3 examples. One question to you before I go ahead with Anna Davis, that is the COVID-19 situation. How do you foresee that will influence these new business models?
Well, I think especially during this crisis now, the farmers had to think more about their ways of selling their products. So they need to find more and new business models for their farms. So it was also an advantage for them to get into new businesses.
Good, and I think we could maybe come back to that also in our last part of this session. So the next speaker I would like to introduce is Professor Anna Davis from Trinity College in Dublin. And Anna Davis, she has been working with environmental and sustainability issues for many years. She has also been working with climate issues. She is a member of the Ireland's Climate Change Advisory Council. So please, Anna, I will give the word to you.
Thank you, Niels, and good morning, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen.
Looks good. We can see it well.
Great. Thanks very much. And again, yes, thanks for the introduction, Niels. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm delighted to participate in this session today and join the conference exploring the digital transformation of agricultural food chain. So while I'm not an agricultural scientist or a digital specialist, I'm very interested in questions of how we can support transitions to a more sustainable food system. And I've been examining the role of increasingly pervasive digital technologies such as smartphones, websites, apps and interactive social media platforms, or ICT for short, and what they might play in supporting this reorientation, particularly for citizens. So my interest in the area of socio-technical innovation began more than a decade ago with a research project that examines sustainable consumption, including food consumption amongst citizen consumers and policy stakeholders across the island of Ireland. And it's being maintained by current research exploring how digital tools are affecting the ways that we share food, from social dining platforms and ICT-mediated community gardening to digitally driven surplus food redistribution initiatives. And briefly recount some of these insights from these projects in order to identify some key challenges and opportunities related to food and the digital revolution we're living through. But first, I guess it's impossible to start such a discussion without first mentioning COVID. So in a recently published report by EIT Food, a knowledge and innovation community established by the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, it was found that lockdown measures during COVID-19 pandemic have dramatically affected food purchasing and consumption. The most considerable behavioural shifts were identified in the way that people shop, with nearly half of consumers reporting an increase in online shopping, bulk purchases, carefully planned shopping trips, with evidence that Europe's appetite shifted to localised sourcing during this period. Similar findings worldwide are also visible in Google Trends analysis shown on this slide in relation to food delivery and local food searches. So while many consumers across Europe suffered financial hardship during COVID-19 pandemic, a third of respondents lost part of all of their income, and more than half said that they found it difficult to make ends meet every month. European consumers still reported buying more food in almost every food category. They also increased their purchase of local food and hope to maintain this, with 90% of respondents saying that they're very likely to continue purchasing local food in the future. Sharing experiences with others also became important too, with more than 30% increase in people saying that they were eating together as a household more as a result of the pandemic. And you can clearly see, though, however, in both graphs, that the spike occurred in the early days of lockdown across the world here in March 2020, with a decline thereafter, with both rates falling back to pre-COVID levels by November 2020. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that the practices behind these searches are also declining, but nevertheless, claims to a sea change in eating practices under COVID that will persist beyond it must be treated cautiously, I think. Maintaining changed practices and supporting food actors to pivot to the new conditions will require appropriately reconfigured governance structures and infrastructures to support activities. But nonetheless, some industry actors have created their own infrastructures pivoting in response to COVID. The iTrade network, for example, offered its online platform to companies struggling to sell or buy food during the crisis, and others sought to change their approach to supplying food altogether. Some food distributors supplying restaurants opened home delivery schemes on their websites to supply to people's homes directly instead. New relationships have developed between distributors and surplus food redistribution hubs, which provided a means to reduce the massive jump in surplus that occurred initially due to the closure of restaurants and cafes and the like. There are stories of small shop owners using platforms such as Viber to post food wares and organise deliveries. One Ukrainian greengrocer had more than 1,000 people in their group chat. In other places, ethical food distributors, in this case here in Rotterdam, reported that since the crisis, demand has tripled, despite the higher prices that they charge in order to pay the local producers a fair price, so 52 cents in every euro spent by their customers. So importantly, while digital technology has enabled them to meet the increased demand, the technology is supporting rather than driving their pivot in the face of COVID. Certainly the non-digital elements of their business model remain important. Their pickup points, for example, are not just distribution, they're also about building a social system in each neighbourhood with collection points run by a local coordinator, meaning consumers see the same person each week and can discuss the products, the farms, and even how to prepare food. So clearly the digital shift is not merely technical, it's also social. And even before the major disruptor of COVID came along, the role for digital technologies was already making waves in relation to household food consumption. So in the consensus project I ran, which was funded by the Environmental Protection Agency here in Ireland, we conducted a process of participatory backcasting to co-design a suite of scenarios and transition pathways to more sustainable food consumption. And a digital shift was envisaged as one plausible, sustainable future. Here shown on the slide, the images reflect the ideas around expanded intelligent fridges, smartphones acting as digital food scanners, providing verifiable analyses of sustainable impacts of food products, and linking actors and communities to sustainably distribute food and redistribute edible surplus. However, while the technological advances were perceived to be potentially supportive of any transition towards more sustainable eating practices, there was a clear degree of ambivalence towards them amongst those that created and evaluated them. Some were troubled by the feeling that the technological interventions might lead to disempowerment, de-skilling, effectively devolving responsibility away from consumers to act sustainably. Others flagged the important point that digital tools themselves would only be as effective as the algorithms and assumptions that underpin them. The research also found widespread levels of mistrust around digital tools in relation to the motives of actors providing or utilising them, particularly around the ethics of generating and utilising personal information that such digital approaches envisage. Certainly, it's not technology alone that will lead to change in eating practices, but how that technology is appropriated, utilised and governed. In my current research in the Share City project, we've been examining what difference ICT developments have made to the long-term human practice of food sharing. And this is a 5-year ERC-funded project which mapped, interrogated and assessed the impacts of ICT mediation on these urban food sharing practices in particular. So if you want to find out more about each of the phases of this project, please check the project website, which is just sharecity.ie. And there's an open access book there linked on the slide as well if you're interested. But while this work considered the use of interactive social media and websites, today I'm going to briefly flag 2 cases which utilise apps and platforms, FoodCloud and EatWith, and a co-designed digital assessment tool that we built with the food sharing initiatives to explore their sustainability practices and potential. So FoodCloud is a highly successful surplus food redistribution charity which has gained significant attention for its app-based mechanisms connecting businesses that have surplus food with charities and community groups that need it. The platform was already used by over 3,000 donating retailers across the UK and Ireland, and it uses a simple cloud-based smartphone app and notification system that enables engagement and donation management for stores and charities. They also provide an admin backend website which shows all donations, donors and recipients, and integration options to receive data from external sources like retail stock control systems for when donors and food banks require further fine-level product data traceability. Prior to FoodCloud, Ireland had no national system for coordinating surplus food redistribution. Now this Irish company coordinates food redistribution to 9,000 charitable recipients on its platform internationally, including 700 from across Ireland. So certainly such scaling would not have been possible without the technology. However, our research revealed that the central importance of interpersonal relationship management for the successful and sustainable donor-recipient engagement. So while it's the technology that has generated the awards and media coverage for FoodCloud, allowing it to scale, the technology is just one part of the successful operation of the company. There are also concerns that while the operation of FoodCloud might be a step change in efficiency for surplus food redistribution initiatives, saving more food from disposal at the retailer phase, they may be propping up an unsustainable business model on the part of retailers who generate the surplus in the first place. How FoodCloud's feedback on the nature and extent of this surplus is dealt with by donors over the longer term will be a key measure of the contributions of surplus food redistribution to sustainable food systems. In a different context, that of peer-to-peer social dining, our research explored the mechanisms of exchange that were facilitated by the platform and particularly explored the experiences of hosts within that. As shown on this slide, peer-to-peer social dining involves meal-based experiences advertised through an online platform as a means for hosts and paying guests to connect and socialize over food and drinks. It's a kind of networked hospitality in which ICT enables strangers to connect online and arrange offline encounters. The hosts we interviewed found that the platform offered them economic and social benefits. In particular, it provided an alternative means to financialize their culinary skills without the capital outlay of running a restaurant, and in a way that was more flexible than the long hours and stressful environments that pervade many commercial kitchens. However, on the negative side, despite the tight regulations around land use and food safety, few hosts were clear about regulatory rules or other formal checks and balances governing their activities. Neither employees or hosts were able to tell us what or who would be covered in the event of an issue at a social dining event, for example. So ultimately, the bulk of responsibility falls on the guests and the hosts to find out what local regulations exist in relation to food safety, taxation, and liability more broadly. Digital reputations become currency, even capital, in online platforms. As a potential guest, you can explore hosts' profiles, contact hosts through the platform, and read reviews left by past guests. However, the ranking is one way. It only makes visible guests' reviews of hosts and does not allow hosts to review guests. As the platform provides no material supports for the acquisition of tools for delivering social dining, there are no allowances made for differential access to digital devices and technological skills for engaging with them. Only those who are able already to have these technological resources and material possessions were able to host dining events in an acceptable fashion that were able to use the platform. So hosting peer-to-peer social dining is only available as a livelihood strategy for those with existing resources. So ultimately, our research exposed tensions and ongoing negotiations regarding matters of authenticity and privacy, uneven risk burdens between hosts and platforms with regards to liability, that leaves governance primarily to morals and has scant regard for matters of sustainability. As a means to assess the burgeoning number of ICT-mediated food sharing initiatives to consider their sustainability impact, we developed an online tool which went beyond quantitative metrics of sales or volume of food produced, cooked, or redistributed, connecting social metrics with narratives of sharing and knowledge exchange spaces. It has 3 spaces: the toolshed, which comprises a suite of indicators that initiatives can select from to build a sustainability impact assessment report; the talent garden, where initiatives can post images, videos, and stories about their activities; and the greenhouse, which seeks to connect initiatives to exchange experiences and troubleshoot challenges. So I don't have time to demonstrate the tool now, but it's available on the website if you're interested to find out more. So just to conclude, the COVID-19 crisis has reinforced a wave of digital innovations around food for citizen consumers. As recognised recently in a report published by SAPEA on moving to a more sustainable food system in Europe, we need to ensure that this shift is sustainable, not reinforcing past inequalities and negative impacts. This will need careful analysis of the sustainability impacts of these digitally supported models and approaches, as well as infrastructural developments, including attention to social and political dynamics. For while digital technologies certainly hold promise for both increasing the speed and scale of interactions, improving efficiency, traceability, and connectivity around food for citizens, they don't operate in a vacuum. Digitally augmented systems are also replete with uneven power relations around access and affordability, data ownership, and privacy. So this means that systems of governance will need reconfiguration in the light of digital processes and impacts to ensure a trusted and fair transition to a more sustainable food future. And I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Anna Davies, for this interesting presentation. I think it's for sure that today we have focus on sustainability among consumers, among citizens. You have showed that we see now new ways of organizations within the food chain. new business models are also invented in Ireland. My question is, we still have the old food industry. We still have the retailers. They are big. How do you see their role in this transformation? Will they join, or will they just let things develop without being involved?
Thanks. So it's an important question. I think, in terms of some of the areas that we were looking at, because we were specifically looking at collaborative practices around food. So, for example, Food Cloud works directly with mainstream retailers in order to redistribute surplus that they find themselves with. They expanded that during COVID because they were also finding lots of suppliers to restaurants and the like who no longer had a customer to supply to, so that they were also brought into their fold. So they've actually expanded their work and engagement with the mainstream food industry. I think the question there, and I raised it in my presentation, is how exactly is the motivation of Food Cloud, which is ultimately to reduce food waste in the food system, really affecting the kind of upstream impacts? So the idea is that the information that Food Cloud provides to the donors helps them manage and potentially reduce the surplus that they produce. So their kind of tagline is that they're a business that doesn't want to exist. Their ultimate goal is to reduce the surplus that's available, but in the interim period, so as a kind of meanwhile technology and business, they're seeking to reduce the impact of the surplus that is there. So, I think it's not clear yet exactly if that message is going upstream and if the efficiency of redistribution is actually reducing surplus from the retail end. So the question is it transformative, or is it simply kind of ensuring the worst excesses of food waste are minimized? And I think that there's a difference there. But certainly we're finding examples where a lot of small businesses are going online due to the context of COVID. And seeking to use these technologies, but it's about the availability and accessibility. So as previous speakers have mentioned, I think that there is a question of access, and we certainly don't want to reinforce already existing digital divides in terms of who can sort of explore and exploit some of these digital opportunities.
Thank you. And maybe a last question before I go to the Q&A session. What about the big tech companies, Amazon, Alibaba? Would we see them also be joining these new business models? Will they also have a place for the future?
I think inevitably there's a lot of discussion around the potential sustainability impacts of such kind of delivery mechanisms through things like Amazon. Certainly it's being explored by the big tech companies. I think we need to ensure that within that we don't create new environmental and social problems which relate to maybe the waste stream through that kind of model, reducing, say, the impact through the delivery mechanisms, so ensuring that electrified vehicles or active modes of travel are used to deliver those mechanisms where possible, and reducing the packaging waste that inevitably comes with those kinds of delivery aspects. So for sure, it's an area that's being explored. I think food is a tricky one for those kind of companies like Airbnb or Uber, who use durable goods as a means of sharing, and food obviously has a limited shelf life, and it brings a lot more complexity, I think, to the liability questions that I also raised in my presentation that will need to be addressed.
Thank you. So before leaving the word to you, Martin, maybe I could just initiate the Q&A session, and then I will leave the word to you and see if we have got some questions from the audience. one thing I would like to ask all of you about, that is the huge role that we now see among policymakers, both in Europe but also in member states, to take advantage of the digital revolution. We see many initiatives. We heard about some of them yesterday by the Commission. We also see that the Common Agriculture Policy will also try to adapt to this new digital age. We have the new research and innovation program, Horizon Europe, which will have a strong focus on digital issues, Earth observation. We have the whole ambition about making Europe digital. We are creating new instruments, living labs, lighthouses, test beds, innovation hubs, EIP, operational groups, focus groups, a lot of things. So my question, and maybe I could start with you, Carol, how do you see this? Is that really the way that we have to go ahead? Is it something which is understood, or are we, in a way, creating also a very complicated system in Europe?
I think that on one side we need to improve monitoring, improve integration of information, and to make there is discussion about different digital twins, as the exact model. On other side, if we go to the farmers, we need to be able to supply them with not some very complex type of the information, but we need to be able to select what is important, and in some cases is as I mentioned, this return on investment, yes, is it necessary to simplify the things. I am working about precision farming 30 years, and I participate in many cases on precision agriculture conferences in Europe and also outside of Europe. There is a huge number of the very nice, very complex models, yes, but these models, they have so many conditions to run that sometimes it's very difficult to use this model. And on other side, in the praxis, much more often are used much more simplified methods, yes. And if the simplified methods are working, then it is more useful for farmers than complex model, which could be expensive. They are not able to collect all data. So it is necessary to look on the balance, and we need to go in some way in the direction of implementation tools which will be possible to use now for farmers, because if we will not attract farmers for something what will be they able to use now, then never will go to this. But on other side, of course, in the research we need to go analyze the complex method, but probably this complex method will be not immediately used by farming sector. So there is necessary some transition, and it is also important from this reason. We have Horizon, and we have could be common agriculture policy, we have structure fund, and we need to find some good link between these instruments, yes, to find some transition period when the result of research, which are sorry, very often on the level as now we are using this TRL 6-7, when anybody will take this and will be able to transform this to this TRL level 9, when these tools will be possible to use and tested this with the real user.
Thank you very much, Carol. And Claudia, how do you look at this European way of dealing with things, this interest that we see from many different angles? Is that something that you also will look into and see how that can also benefit your company and the way that you are working?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the question. actually digitalization, it's a big chance for agriculture, and we see that there are so many possibilities already on the market for the farmers, and they are using all these techniques and possibilities more every year, and they ask for it. But as already Mr. Chavez said before, I think we need some more consulting also for the farmers, and they need they have the need of consulting services from traders like we are to explain a little bit more, and to go through the apps and the digital farm management systems and things like that. So that would be probably the most important thing, that we help the farmers to deal with the digitalization better and easier. And then it's going to be a big chance.
And Anna, I don't know if you have a comment also on this. How do you look at the way that we are dealing with things in Europe from many different angles? Is that the right way of doing it? Do we face a risk, or is it something that you and researchers also can understand and benefit from?
I think that there's the diversity is positive. Particularly the work through the Horizon 2020 project, which had these lighthouses that you mentioned, the test beds. I think it's clear, even from the kind of transitions theory, that these niche kind of activities need spaces to be experimented on and to be tested in different contexts before rolling out. It makes absolute sense. I think the challenge then, though, is with project funding, when projects finish, that then there's a question of what are the opportunities to continue that. And certainly, I suppose we're feeling that there's a whole array of supports for science to commercialization routes for findings and outputs. I mean, even in the ShareCity project with the Share It tool, we are currently working with a booster program with the Horizon 2020 scheme to develop a business plan for that. However, our notion for doing this was not commercial, was more of a social enterprise structure. And I guess that there aren't necessarily so many supports for diverse business models. Those that fit squarely into commercial arenas certainly have an array of supports that can be utilised. But I think it is a challenge to get from the niche to the mainstream, and then of course that's where a lot of startup companies fail inevitably. But I think that's the space that additional support is often needed, and I would like to see more maybe creativity and imagination for looking at different types of business models beyond purely for-profit commercial frameworks, and explore different ways of delivering goods and services. I mean, we've certainly seen that in terms of food sharing, where we have a lot of not-for-profit social enterprise cooperative models which operate in a different way. And I think if we're serious about transforming the food system, we have to address some of these fundamental pillars of the current system in order to see what potential alternatives have. And it's not simply a case of throwing out the capitalist baby with the bathwater. I mean, it's more nuanced than that, and it's about exploring different kinds of models and what that means, and different forms of governance and different forms of investment. I mean, we've seen this through the increasing interest in sort of donut economics, for example. How do we manage and value different elements of things that the food system produces? And certainly from my end and my area of interest, food is much more than simply fuel for the body. It plays a significant role in communities, in societies. So it shouldn't just be the concern of agricultural departments, for example. And I think that we need to look at how food is dealt with more broadly, and be open to different ways of doing things, even if they don't fit in to the existing system, because we know that existing system has flaws.
Thank you very much, Anna Davis. I think I will leave the word now to Martin, because you have probably got a lot of questions also for this session.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Niels. And maybe we can extend this session by 5 minutes so we have a little bit more time to address many of those very interesting questions. So I'm happy to bring in some perspectives from the audience, and maybe we start right away with you, Claudia. And among all questions, there's a general trend. People are really interested in those specific projects you were highlighting or put a light on. And Claudia, this question is for you. So may you explain a little bit further or give a little bit more detail on the Future Earth project?
Yeah, for sure. So it's our project, which we started in summer, and it's about carbon sequestration. So we help the farmers to increase their humus content. And when they really can increase their humus content over a certain time period, we fix the time period with 3 to 7 years from one soil sample to the other. Then we know how the humus content was increased, and we have the possibility to sell then carbon certificates on the market to external companies who have a focus on sustainability, and they buy the certificates then to a certain amount of money, and we have the possibility to pay that back to the farmer who set all the activities around the humus content and increasing the humus content. So it's a really sustainable way to help the farmers to profit or to benefit from the increasing humus content, and making activities around a great soil fertility.
Thank you very much. And maybe as a quick follow-up, one audience member is curious. Does Rentflex cooperate with the Austrian machinery rings, so Maschinenring? I think they're established now for many decades. So is there a cooperation going on?
Not for the moment. So we are doing that on our own. So RWA and the warehouses in Austria. And we are also the partner of John Deere in Austria. So most of the machineries are John Deere machines. But we don't work together at the moment with the machinery.
Thank you very much, Claudia. And the next question is for you, Carol. So it's about farmers' digital acceptability, basically. So the question says they buy what is of value for them. Sustainability and Green Deal depends on local criteria and is for people or for the people. But which people? What kind of people?
I think that Green Deal is okay. On one side, there is still that we need to guarantee profitability of the farmers, and that European farmers has to be competitive on the market. On other side, there is a number of measures which are in the common interest. Yes, because we have to reduce the risk of hazard pesticide about 50%. We have to reduce about 20% fertilizer. We have to reduce the losing of nutrients in the field. So there is a number of things which are also in common interest. What is now a little problem? That we have a Green Deal, but till now, yes, Green Deal came in the end of 2019, in principle. But the Common Agriculture Policy is already discussed from 2018, and also on the level of the countries, till now is the gap between the discussion about Common Agriculture Policy and Green Deal. So it is very important that they will be possible to adapt in some way subsidy system to be able to cover the part of the cost, or to support the farmers in adoption of this new technology to reach this new goal. All this has to be included in a common agriculture policy. On other side, yes, it's clear, if we will have such technology that farmers will be able to produce the same level of the production with less of input, they will increase their profitability. But to do this and to adopt such type of the technology, or to make innovation in such way, it cannot be covered probably from the side of the farmers, but again, this has to be covered from some public financing, because this really requires huge cooperation. It is not possible to do this with one, could be big IT company or one chemical company, but this is necessary to cooperate on this. And of course, there are some farmers who are already using this technology for many years, yes, and they see the profit. But on other side, the broader adoption of this is not coming so far. So there is necessary now, I think, to have real political support and real political rules, because this is not easy. You have European level, you have country level, yes. This rules has to be adopted on the country level, and I think that there is now necessary very, very effective work of politicians, but on the other side, it's important that politicians will also speak with scientists, yes, because scientists has to give them some input how this could be done, because if the political decision is taken without some real knowledge of the reality, it could be very dangerous.
Thank you very much. We heard about the importance of cooperation of different levels and actors talking and working with each other. So maybe the next question perfectly fits to that, and that's for Anna. So the question is, did you experience entirely new actor collaborations in the food system fueled by ICT?
So did we find an actor that entered because of the ICT? Is that the question?
I guess. I sadly didn't ask that question, but I would read it that way too. Yeah, like entirely new.
Yeah. I mean, I think what we did was map across 100 cities all the online food sharing activities. So as I mentioned, a lot of these were mediated by interactive social media, websites, nothing particularly high tech, but online nonetheless. And the majority of those would have been initiatives that were pre-existing the technological revolution and had adopted and adapted the kind of pervasive smart technologies in order to augment what they were already doing. But the example of Food Cloud, or while the notion of a surplus food redistribution initiative isn't new, what they did with the technology was new. So they were a new actor that came on the back of the technology into the environment. But one of the founders was actually working with me on their master's dissertation, which was a feasibility study for the what ended up being the company. And the driver was much more about reducing food waste. They weren't technologists per se, but the technology enabled them to do something which wasn't already in existence in Ireland at that time. I mean, I guess the online peer-to-peer social dining experience is a kind of new arena, and similarly to other sharing platforms where it's not that the idea of eating together with other strangers is necessarily new, but the means of coordinating, connecting people who want to deliver such experiences and people who want to experience them through that online process of stranger sharing is new. But it's not at a scale where it's conflicting with the incumbent restaurant industry. And I think in contrast, perhaps to mobility and accommodation sectors, there's less chance of that tension between incumbents and new arrivals, because it's a qualitatively different kind of experience. You go not only to eat in someone's home and experience kind of that kind of setting in a city. But you go to meet strangers deliberately and explicitly to chat with people. Now, here in Ireland, we do that in the pub all the time. I mean, you know, you love to meet new people and have those kind of conversations, but it's not necessarily something which is very common in a restaurant setting. So it's a slightly different offering. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but certainly what we found were new arrivals in pre-existing spaces that use technology to do things differently. And we've also found that there are kind of new experiences which have been facilitated by digital aspects.
Thank you very much, Anna. And to end this discussion, I think it would be great to finish with a little optimistic outlook, because this transformation also offers a lot of great opportunities. It is a great opportunity to unfold potential. And so maybe at this stage, I would like to share not so much a question, but a statement, but feel free to add to it. And it states, I think it's a big mistake to think that farmers are not capable to use high technology. Farms are using a lot of technology already and are more of an engineer. So are farmers the next engineers? Are all farmers engineers? Where are we going towards the future? Maybe we do a little round, each and every one of you sharing a thought on this final statement we just heard.
Well, I think that statement was completely correct, that the farmers are already engineers and they're already working with a lot of technologies already. But there are some new technologies coming up, especially digital technologies. And I'm pretty sure that the farmers are also willing and able to benefit from them in the future.
I could just jump in here in the sense that, I mean, our focus was more perhaps on the consumer end than the farmer end. But when we were looking at sort of community growing and farmers in urban systems or community supported agricultural systems, what it's clear is that farmers are not just engineers. They're stewards, they're ecologists, they're sociologists, they're marketeers. There's such an array of areas of expertise that farmers engage with, and I think absolutely recognising their capabilities is important. But nonetheless, ensuring that there are sufficient supports for those who don't have access to technologies. Certainly in Ireland, in certain areas, the coverage of Wi-Fi, for example, is appalling. So, I mean, if you don't have these fundamental infrastructures to support these tools, then they're not going to be able to be accessed in a kind of fair and transparent way.
I think that, yes, I agree with this. And what I see as now the most important is to show to young people that farming is sexy, and that the farming is some area where the most modern technology are used, the most modern knowledge is used, and that it is not only as the everyday in the field, but that it is necessary to understand the progress in many areas. And I am sure that it is now possible to attract more and more young and clever people to this, and this is probably the future.
And Martin, if I could also have a word, I would also say, I would also be optimistic. I've been dealing with agriculture and bioeconomy for many years, and I think that what we see here is that farmers, they will be able also to adapt to the new technologies, the new trends. I think for the whole sustainability and climate discussions, farmers will play a key role, and so I will also be optimistic. And for me, ICT and digitalization will be a major tool in that development. Thank you.
So thank you very much to all of you. If I would sum it up, it's all about let's stay optimistic, get the young people on board, and let's foster and use all the great opportunities that are ahead of us. So thank you all. Thank you to our expert. Thank you to you, Niels, for moderating this session. And thank you to everyone in the audience who raised a question that is really great, and we are now at the end of this track 1 discussion and would head right into a lunch break and would see each other again at 1:45 p.m. for the afternoon part of the program. And we will start the afternoon by hearing more about the outcome of today's track number 2 session. This was a non-public policy forum. And then in the afternoon, the program will continue with a panel discussion that will bring together top-level speakers from the field. And then we will close the conference with remarks by representatives of the German Federal Ministry as well as EURAGRI. So during the lunch break, again, a quick reminder, you are able to join our online networking. We offer that, and you can enter the WebEx rooms by pushing the networking button in the lower part of your screen. And with that being said, I wish you a really good lunch break, and thank you very much for joining us in the morning.